No, that's good. So, well, thanks everyone for having me today. I'm going to tell you a funny story. Megan, who coordinates all these events, I looked in my diary on Friday last week. I said, I've got to do a talk on Monday. And she said, yeah, it's 3:50, come over, it'll be good. So I found the flash drive and put the presentation on. I hope I've got the right one. I think I do. And then I get in the car. Our academy's over the back here. Like you look through those windows, it's out there. And I get in the car and I drive over and I walk into the Pullman and there's four-wheel drive things and there's a Yamaha bike and I'm thinking, okay, driver training, geez. They're a bit proactive. They're trying to sell kids the biggest trail bike on the face of the planet at the same time. I thought things had changed since I was a kid. So I walk in. I said to one of the boys, is there a conference in here? And they said, yeah, no, the last room. So I walk in and walk in the back. And, g'day guys, how you going? Thinking, they on time? The girl said, I don't know. I'm reading the stuff on the screen. I'm thinking, what the hell? So I walk outside. I go, Megan, what room is this talk in? She goes, no, it's at the club. I said, oh, now it makes sense. So anyway, I apologise. So, okay, thanks for having me. How many New South Welsh people have we got in the room? Just so I sort of know my audience. Okay, all right. So, okay, so I don't expect everyone in the room to be a rugby league fan. I get that, and we've probably got some fans that love their footy, 8 out of 10, and some people go, what's footy, 1 out of 10. I get that. I'm not here to talk about rugby league. I'm here to tell you a story. And the story is our journey, Penrith Panthers' journey. For those people that don't know, Panthers have been very successful over the last couple of years. We've played in the last 5 grand finals and have won 4 of the last 5 grand finals. So that's all right. I did it all from the luxury of a corporate box on game day. So I was really sweating. So what I've got here is a story. Jump in any time, ask whatever questions you want. But it's just our story. I'm not a leader. If you looked at the thing today and said, here's this bloke from the Panthers, and you thought there was going to be some leadership expert that's going to come talk to you today, that ain't me. All right? I'm just a woodwork teacher, got a hit on the arse with a rainbow, and I run a footy club now. It's as simple as that. So, but I'm going to tell you our story because I think it's pretty cool. So, okay. So I came here in 2012. We were an okay team, made the final some year, didn't make the final other years. We had a head coach, Ivan Cleary. 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. At the end of the 2015 season, Phil Gould, who was the executive general manager of rugby league at that point in time at the club, made the decision that we were going to go in a different direction. So he tapped, as you do in rugby league, when you've got a year left on your contract, someone comes along and says, get your bag and off you go, sort of thing. So full support of the board. Full support of the board, that's the phrase they use. So, so obviously Ivan left at that point in time. Another head coach, Anthony Griffin, came in. Anthony coached 2016, 2017, 2018 with some sort of mixed results, and again at a point in time, for whatever reason, the board and or executive general manager of rugby league, the CEO at that point in time, I'm not sure, I was just sort of washing cars down here at that stage, they made the decision we were going to go in a different direction. Not we're going to go and get Ivan back, but we're going to go in a different direction. We need to find another head coach, and through a series of circumstances, some well documented for those people that follow it, the chairman at the time rang Ivan because Ivan has a property in Leonay just up the back here, and he rang Ivan with the intent because he was thinking about buying his house. And it ended up as a coffee, and the chairman couldn't help himself. He just blurted it out and said, would you like to come back and coach at Penrith? And I can't use the profanity that the coach used at that point in time, expressing his gratitude for the opportunity. But so he came back in 2019, and we had a very mixed 2019. We were shithouse. We came 11th from memory, and at the end of the 2019 season, over at the stadium, which they're just about to knock down now, there's a thing called the chairman's room. It's probably a little bit bigger than this space. It's a corporate function room. And at the end of the 2019 season, we had what we referred to as the love-in. And we have a love-in every year now. And they're a little bit shorter, but the first love-in was 3 days. So we got everyone involved in rugby league, and there's about 21, 22 of us on the football staff. And my role at that point in time was, I was the general manager of rugby league. So we get everyone in the room, coaching staff, coaches, assistant coaches, physios, doctors, strappers, recruitment people, everyone involved in football. And I led the process in a way, and I thought I had the easy part because I could throw stones all day. Like I was the independent person that said, what about this? And when someone said something quite sort of controversial over here, I was the one that could go, no, tell me more. Like, you got to speak, you got to share, you got to be, and I'll get onto it, you got to be vulnerable enough to talk to one another. So on this first iteration of our Love In, one of the things that I put up was this slide, and this is my favourite thing that I talk about in football. I used to be a school teacher. I taught woodwork 5 years. I only regretted it once, just once. So that's a lie. 18 years ago, and I've still got them all. So this is Everest, obviously, and clearly I'm not a mountain climber. But when we look at this, it's a football season or it's a school year, and that's why I like the drawing. So when you talk about it in football, you come to base camp, we're going to climb Everest, and we talk about this bit here being like the pre-season, the shitty part of the year. You've got to run your guts out, sweat a lot, lose a bit of weight, get fit. And then you get to Camp 1, which is like the start of the year. Everyone's excited. So Camp 1 to Camp 2 is that interesting bit at the start of the year. When you get to Camp 2, it's that awkward bit where Origin and the representative football starts, and all of a sudden half your team's missing, and some people just aren't interested because the team's playing, but those 4 blokes are over there playing for New South Wales or Queensland. So anyway, you get to Camp 3, you get all your players back, everyone gets excited again. You've got 8 weeks at the end of the season, so you go as hard as you can, and all of a sudden you get to Camp 4, and if you're good enough, you play in the finals at the end of the year. And then over a 3-week period, if you're good enough, you get to Hillary Step. You're in the grand final, and then you have a crack. Can you get to the top of Everest? And the reason we love it is because it's repeatable every single year. So if you talk to mountain climbers, not that I do, but if you talk to mountain climbers, they'll say, I've watched documentaries, Foxtel. I saved up all this money, I got fit, we got to here, and I went to Everest, and I got to Camp 3. And then I just tapped out, it was too hard. Then I went back home and I saved for another 3 years, and I got fit and I learned some more skills, and I came back and I had another crack at it. And that's rugby league for us. That's a school teacher's year. Right? It's a very repeatable event. You know the things that you've got to do to get to a certain point, and then you try and improve on that, and you improve on that, and you improve on that. And I've been in rugby league now nearly 20 years, and it's a series of just trying to repeat and improve on what we did last year. So, if I go to the next slide. A lot of people forget, it takes 6 days to get to base camp. You've got to fly to Nepal, the flight to Nepal, like the flight to A to B's okay, but the rest of the little flights to get to Nepal, hard work, and then it's like 5 or 6 days to trek into base camp. So it's a pretty sort of punches you right in the face. And remembering that base camp, can't even find it now, is at 5,665 metres. So you're already 5/8 of the way to the top by the time you get to base camp. So it's a fair effort just to get to there. Okay, so we go to the next slide. Now, for those people that follow the Panthers, you might have heard Ivan talk about the bus, getting on the bus. When he left his previous club, he got off the bus. And a lot of people had the shits because he got off the bus and got on a different bus. And he kept using, we've got to get on the bus. But what we find in rugby league is if you get the right people on the bus, you can take the bus anywhere you want. If you don't get the right people on the bus to start off with, I'm not sure you can do too much more other than maybe pull out of the bus bay and indicate and do all the things you should do to pass the test for the lady that was just here. But I'm not sure if you can get the bus too much further than that. And if you can, I reckon it's going to be coughing and spluttering all the way. So, we went to the Love In across the road, and out of 3 days, we walked away with the realisation that to get to Everest, we didn't even have the right people in base camp to get there, to have a fair income crack at it. Now, we work in an interesting world. I operate in an interesting environment. That's probably the easiest way to describe it. The players have end date contracts. So Nathan Cleary at the moment has a contract that says he finishes on the 31st of October 2027. Now clearly I will move heaven and earth to make sure that we keep extending that contract until he's 60. But all the players have end date contracts. Some of the staff have end-date contracts. Some of the staff are evergreen contracts. They're just employees of the club. So we had the unenviable task at a point in time where we all sat in a room. We worked out what we needed to do to change it. And then I had to sit with the coach and just maybe one or two others, and I had to work out who's in base camp and who has to leave base camp. Now, some players came off contract. That's easy. We're just not going to renew your contract. Some players had a year to go on their contract. And we went to the players, as we do in rugby league, and we go, look, you're a nice bloke, but it's not going to work here moving forward. So I'm going to ring your manager, and I'm going to ask your manager to start looking around out there to see if there's other opportunities for you at another club, because there's no opportunity for you at the end of this year. So I'm being as upfront and as honest as I can be. You're a great bloke, but we will not be renewing your contract. So if you want to test the market at the moment, knock yourself out. There were some blokes, one bloke had 4 years left on a contract, and he had to exit base camp. And there's a financial ramification that sits with us to do that. But, and I'm not saying that all of those people and 3 staff, I'm not saying they're bad people. All I'm saying is they just weren't the right fit at the right time for us at the Penrith Panthers. My background's in coaching. I coached at the Parramatta Eels years ago, and we had a kid, David Williams. I've coached David since he was 15, all the way through to the fringes of first grade, and we just couldn't get him going. He goes to Manly, wins a competition, plays for Australia. He was always a good player, and we thought we were pretty good coaches, but for whatever reason, he flourished there and he didn't flourish here. I look at the players that have left our club in that first sort of torrid time where we made these changes. A lot of those players have gone on to play for Australia. They've gone on to play representative football. They're good players, or they were good players. They just weren't the right fit at the right time for us. The staff, that was different. And some of this other stuff I'm going to talk about, we talk about trust in our building. The hard thing for us is we are an emotion-based business. If we get it right, we're on the back page of the paper. If we cock it up, we're on the front page of the paper. That's the difference that's my business and your business is exactly the same. And people go, don't be stupid. Who owns it? Sole traders? Yes? Yep. You got a P&L at the end of the year, profit and loss? Yep. You've got staffing problems sometimes? Sole trader. I should have answered my own question there. But the problems that you have are the same problems that I have, only mine are magnified because it's a sport and it's in the public forum and it's emotional. When people think that we're not going good, they lose their minds sometimes. All right? So, we'll go to the next one. What did we do about it? There's a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's written by a bloke called Patrick Lencioni. I'll give you the clip. I'll give you the tip. There's a 42-minute YouTube clip. If you don't want to read the book, the YouTube clip basically covers the whole book. So, as luck would have it, I read the book 10 years ago, and the coach read the book 10 years ago. But for some unknown reason, the coach's brother sent him a copy of the book at the end of the 2019 season. And we both read the book again, and when Ivan came in, he goes, this is us. This is us in a nutshell. This book is explaining us as a footballing organisation. And one of the things that he spoke about was when he wasn't coaching at the club, when he was coaching at the Tigers, and he was coming to every game, because Nathan's obviously playing first grade and he's coming to the football. So when he waltzed back into the joint in 2019, he went, right, I've got all the answers because I've been watching you guys play, and at the end of the 2019 season, we didn't make the finals. And when we had the love in, what he spoke about was, I thought I had all the answers because I'd been coming and watching you play. And what I realised is I'd just been coming and watching my son play halfback for a season. He didn't have all the answers. But one of the first things that it talks about here, in a way, when we talk about absence of trust, is vulnerability. So we still are today, 6 years down the track, we are on an absolute mission about what we call vulnerability-based trust. And what I mean as an example of that, For the coach at the Love-In, one of the things that we did was very similar to this. All our tables were like in a U shape. Every person had to come down the front, and there were like 3 questions that they had to answer. I can't remember exactly what the questions were, but to get it done and to make it work, if you are talking about being vulnerable, the biggest dog in the room has to go first. So when the coach came down and sat in the room and talked about this and this and this and this and this, he is giving everyone else in the room permission to be vulnerable. If I got the smallest person in the room to come up the front and go, expose yourself to these 23 people, what do you think they're going to do? They're just going to do that, aren't they? Sorry, that made a big noise then, didn't it? I didn't think I was going to... They just clam up, okay? So when on our vulnerability-based trust mission, and obviously the coach has just written a book, and he talks about his mental health issues. Now, he's spoken to us about that. So you got a highly paid coach in a very visible sport, and he sits at the front of the room and he goes, I've struggled with this at times. The empowerment that gives every other person in the room is incredible. One of the guys who was in the room, his name's Lee Hopkins, and I coached Lee at the Parramatta Eels in the early 2000s. Lee played first grade here, played there, played in England. Now, I thought I knew Lee. Lee gets up, suffers from anxiety, has issues around these things here. Lee, what coping? I do Lego. What? Lego is his coping mechanism that he uses. And we've actually got to a point, like it's not a piss take, but we love Lee so much. Guess what his Kris Kringle present every year is? It's Lego, and he loves it. But it's being vulnerable enough to get up in front of a group of people and talk at that level. All right? So when we talk about these things, we talk about an absence of trust, the fear of being vulnerable with team members. It's huge for what we do. And the 3 people that we tipped out at the end of 2019, we had to tip them out because we couldn't trust them. All right? They worked in a part of the business where when a player comes in and tells that person something, it is sacrosanct. And we were finding out that information was making its way back into the playing group somehow. We just couldn't have it. And those 3 people, like, great people, but unless we can do this, unless they could get on the bus, unless we could do this thing here, unless we could create an environment where people could trust you, all right? Put yourself in an employee's point of view. I've got a player coming off contract. Does anyone know what the average NRL career is at the moment? In terms of games? 44 games. I was lucky when I coached at the Parramatta Eels, I coached Nathan Hindmarsh. He played 330 games. At the same time, I coached a kid, his name was Nathan McMillan. He played 7 minutes. Came on at the 33-minute mark in a game against Manly in a week that Aaron Canning had a broken arm. He played till half-time and Brian Smith said, you come off and Kalis goes back on. That was his NRL career, 7 minutes. So in our environment, we've got a whole bunch of young men, short career spans, and you've got players that are coming off contract and that are sometimes injured, and they're talking to performance staff about should I play, shouldn't I play, and then you've got the coach saying I think you should play, and you've got performance staff saying I don't think you should play. The kid wants to get on the park because he gets on the park, he puts his best foot forward, he gets another contract. So you can understand in the confines of our office, if we're not all, and you'll hear me talk about it, if you ever hear me dribbling again, you'll hear the coach talk about it. We talk about alignment. It is the one thing that we do in our business, I think, better than anyone else. We are absolutely aligned on what we're trying to achieve and how we go about it. So when I've got a coach saying this and a performance staff member saying that and a player whose head's about to wobble off, that's not alignment. And that's an example of where we had to make some hard decisions around staff about getting to a point where there was trust, not an absence of trust. That we could have a meeting on a Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock with 16, 17, 20 people in it, and we could talk about things and everyone in the room was comfortable and vulnerable enough to actually talk and put their ideas up. Which leads to the second bit, which is an incredibly hard thing to get good at, is innately, as human beings, we all have a fear of conflict. And if you don't, I don't know, but I won't say anything, but we all have a fear of conflict. And especially in a emotive, testosterone-driven business like ours across the back, it can get sideways sometimes. So, one of the things is we wanted to get to a point where we could get a group of men, not all, we have a couple of female staff, but the key players in this, the coaches and the assistant coaches and performance staff are all men. We sit in a room, be vulnerable enough to put our thoughts across, not be afraid of someone in the room going, that's horseshit, we're not doing that, and going in a different direction. Because the minute you say that, you just stop putting your hand up. It's like first thing I was taught as a school teacher, questioning techniques. So you'd be in a classroom and you look around the room and all these people here are thinking, shit, don't ask me a question. So I'll go over here. So, yeah, and I taught woodwork, so it's a little bit different, but you know, you've got a young person in your classroom and you go, mate, what's 9 divided by 3? Right? And the person knows the answer, but he's fearful of putting the answer forward because he doesn't want to be wrong, and everyone goes, does something stupid like that. But what then happens from the teacher's point of view, and I go, what's 9 divided by 3? And the student says 2, you go, not close, not quite, who can help him out, rather than going and moving on to the next one. All right, so there's actually there's a knack in how you do it and how we try and get people not to be fearful of putting their comments forward by not going, that's horseshit, I'm not listening to that, because you won't put your hand up next time. One of the things that we talk about, one of the things that I think I do well in my role is I'm a collaborator. I like to get people's opinions. If I said we're going to repaint that wall there, and I've got these 3 people here, hey boys, I've got to repaint that wall. I'm not sure, it's not doing it for me. What do you think? And someone says, well, I think we should paint it
orange.
Orange. Okay. All right.
Yellow.
Yellow?
Yep. I want to keep it.
You want to keep it? Okay. All right. So we did pros and cons of orange, pros and cons of yellow, and the pros and cons of keeping it. The first one is save money. I like it. And then at the end of the day, my job, I'm the tiebreaker. I'm the bloke that gets paid to make the decisions when we can't come up with a decision. All right. But when I go, you know what? We're going to paint it black. But these 3 guys here, they all go, well, at least I was involved in the process and my response was considered. I might not agree with painting it black, but at least I know that the boss explained to me why, and okay, all right. Well, not what I would have done, but I get it, and we all move on. All right, that's a very fundamental way of how we try and operate over there. I'm interested in what you think. I'm interested in what you think. Let's talk about why. Really? Orange? But let's talk about it. Sorry. Right.
I was all for black.
I'm Terry Tight Ass over there. I'm not painting it at all. I'm saving the money and doing something else with it. So, and then all of a sudden, this little thing has turned into all the gas has been taken out of the conversation. It's become like lighthearted. It's become not comical, but you see what I'm getting at, right? Because we're trying at all times to create this environment where we don't fear conflict, all right? We don't go looking for it. I don't go to work every day going, right, I'm going to start a fight right now. Who am I going to start a fight with? We don't do that either. But we go out of our way to create environments where people aren't scared of putting their hand up and saying, have you thought about this? Because you know what? I don't have all the answers. I was a woodwork teacher. We're a $42 million a year business. What do you think happens when someone comes in and wants to talk to me about a commercial contract? Jeremy, come in here, please. Jeremy, I'd like you to meet Arthur and Martha. Talk to Jeremy. Because you know what? I'm not a commercial guy. I was a coach. And now I do the salary cap and player contracts. That's my strength. So Jeremy, don't come and tell me what you think Nathan's worth. Right? That's me. But Jeremy, I need your help here when we're doing contracts, because I would like to think that I am vulnerable and smart enough to know that I am not the smartest bloke in the room when it comes to that sort of thing. And that's where we try and get to all the time. The three at the top, you know what? We don't go anywhere near them because they sort of happen if you get the two at the bottom worked out. Think of it like a pyramid. The two at the bottom are like huge big wedges, and the three at the top are like smaller things that sometimes sort of take care of themselves at times. Okay? You can't do the bottom, you can't get up, come to work and run 6 kilometres a day at 100 metres a minute and go and lift weights if you're not committed. You can't get changed, run out and run into Jared Warrior-Hargreaves if you're not committed. So the ones at the top tend to take care of themselves. Accountability, it's on national TV. Everyone can see what you're doing. So the ones at the top, they sort of take care of themselves. And the top one, we never talk about because we would like to think we are a process-driven business. We come to work, we know if we do these things really well, more often than not, this is the result I'm going to get. We don't look, we don't seek the results. We chase the process, I suppose. And in a rugby league world, our world is backwards. So we work backwards to the game. So if the game is on a Saturday, Friday is game day -1, Thursday is game day -2, Wednesday is game day -3, Tuesday is game day -4. Those 4 days don't change ever in the season unless we're travelling, unless we're going to New Zealand or something like that. So we play a game, we do a lot of recovery at the start of the week, and then when we hit game, sometimes we get a game day -5 depending on the schedule. And then those 5 days, you know what? They're almost carbon copies of each other for the rest of the year. Sometimes we run a little bit more, sometimes we run a little bit less. Sometimes we might be 42 degrees out there, sometimes we do this and we do that over there. But those 5 days, they're almost absolute carbon copies of each other as we go through the year. Next slide. How am I going for time? So, a little bit. We talk about culture. How many times have you gone into the whatever bank and you walk in and you go, integrity? If they've got to put it on the wall to tell you what they're about, I reckon they're coming off the back foot to start off with. The minute you walk in somewhere and you meet the receptionist, you should be able to tell what that organisation's like. I say to people in my business, if I keep picking on you because you're right in front of me, if I brought you into my academy on a Monday and we played on the Sunday, you shouldn't be able to tell whether we won or lost based on my staff's work patterns and diligence. When I coached years ago, I always used to say to people, I should be able to, me personally in my coaching, I should be able to drag you into the dressing shed at half time and you shouldn't be able to tell whether we're winning or losing by my conversations with the players and their conversations back. Otherwise, it's when we're in front, it's yeah, boy, and when we're in behind, it's like, it's that one. All right? So they're the challenges that I throw out for my staff. That, you know, it's a consistency thing that we're talking about. When the coach talks about it, he talks about 3 things. He talks about how we look, how we feel, how we act. Okay, when he talks about how we look, if you knew nothing about rugby league and I took you to the football and I sat you there and I got your beer and hot dog and said, just watch that. At the end of the game, I would love you to go, you know what? The team in black, they just look fitter than the team in yellow. And you know what? They actually looked more organised. I don't know what they were doing, but they actually looked more organised and they actually looked more reliable. That would be a tick, tick, tick for me in my world, for someone that knew nothing about what we were doing. So it's about how we look when we're out on the field. And we talk about how we feel. When you come to work at the Penrith Panthers, we want you to feel safe. I do not care whether you are Polynesian, Melanesian, Micronesian, Anglo, English, Indigenous. We're not interested in that. We are not interested in your religion. We are not interested in your sexuality. We want you to come to work at the Penrith Panthers and we want you to feel safe in an environment where you can flourish as a player. It is intense. I laughed about it a minute ago. You're going to run out, you're going to run in. I'm going to have the ball and I'm 100 kilos and I'm going to run over there, and he's 100, and he's 100, and he's 100, and all three are going to hit me. It's a small car crash, speaking of. Indicate, all right? It's a small car crash every time they run the ball up. And we want you to feel connected. When we do a lot of stuff, we do storytelling. Every morning we have a thing called check-in at 8 o'clock, and we get 2 chairs. I don't. The wellbeing manager gets 2 chairs, and he goes, and today we're going to get down the front. No, it's all right. So, sorry, what's your name?
Christian.
Christian, right. So we get Christian down the front, and Kevin Kingston, our wellbeing manager, he sits here. So Christian, and he would have talked to Christian the day before. Right? And he knows Christian because he's probably known Christian for the last 3 or 4 years. So him and Christian will have a chat. We're going to get you up to do a bit of storytelling. What do you want to talk about tomorrow? How about we talk about your first grade debut? How about we talk about that? So Kevy just has this knack of just getting it out of people. We've got a young man plays for the Parramatta Eels. He was with us not last year, the year before. He's a Queensland boy. He came down and he had us in tears. He told us a story. He was a kid playing junior league. His dad was playing A grade on the field beside, and at half time the dad went back to the car, and for some reason they went looking for him. Dad had a heart attack and passed away in the front seat of the car. So it's like the storytelling bit is huge for us because it creates a sense of connection within our group. We know each other. We love each other. It underpins so much of what we do.
He's a good player too, Kevin.
He was a good player. Club captain, 184 games for the Penrith Panthers. So he's worth his weight in gold. And the last one is how we act. So we talk about 10,080 minutes. So the game is 80 minutes every week. It's 10,000 minutes every week where our players they're not in their jersey. Might be in a training shirt, but they're members of society like everyone else. So when we talk about how we act, we want them to be trustworthy. We want them to exhibit teamwork always. And that might not just be when they're playing rugby league. That might be, I've got to pick this table. We might have a function, say, hey boys, I need these chairs and these tables put away. Can you give me a hand? Teamwork. All right, you roll, you get the tables, you get the chairs, you do this, you take tablecloths, you do this. Simple things. And we want them to be courageous. We do want them to run hard and run into people. And we want them to be, and part of being courageous is being vulnerable as well. It's not all about what they do on the field. Next one. Okay, just a couple of things that we talk about in our business. There's a book by a guy by the name of Jim Collins, if anyone looking for something long to read over summer. He's got 4 books, Good to Great, Built to Last, Great by Choice, and then the 4th one is How Good Businesses Go Bad. All right, so it talks about really good businesses, and then the last book talks about when you're a good business, the signs that you're about to go off the other side. So one of the things he talks about in the books is a couple of concepts that we use a lot. One of them is called the hedgehog concept. So those 3 circles. What are you deeply passionate about? What can you be the best in the world at? What drives your economic engine? Okay, so for me and us, what drives our economic engine at the Penrith Panthers being a top 4 rugby league team? Let's not beat around the bush. We are a win-loss business. When we win, we generate revenue. When we don't win, we don't generate as much revenue. We are a win-loss business. We're not community sport at that level, okay? What can we be the best in the world at? We've set ourselves a target. We want to be the best club in the NRL at preparing young men for life after rugby league. So of our playing group, of our 30 players, 29 are currently engaged in some sort of educational work outside of the game. And the 30th, his course kicks off in a couple of weeks' time. Statistically, if you are engaged away from the game, you play longer, you get injured less, you earn more money. Now, if that's not 3 things that I could tell an 18-year-old kid when I'm trying to say, I think you should go to uni and do a course, if I throw those 3 statistics in front of him or mum and dad, that's an easy sell. And what are we deeply passionate about? We want to be a source of community pride. That's why we do it. If you listen to the chairman talk, he'll talk about what we do is football and licensed clubs. Why we do it is about community. We want to be a source of community pride in the Penrith district. So, but the challenge for us is to live in the intersection of those 3 circles. Not get some harebrained idea and we'll run off over there and publicly tell everyone we want to win the competition every year. I know it sounds a bit stupid at the moment, but if we said we want to come first every year, like that's not living in the middle of those three circles. Because I only need to be a top 4 team, because statistically you can't win the comp unless you're a top 4 team. So, next one. I'm looking for clock builders, not time tellers. What time is it?
20 to 5.
20 to 5. Okay, beautiful. Now, everyone in the room could tell me that? Yep? Yes? No? Yes? Yes. Can anyone in the room tell me how that works? So I'm actually looking, like being a time teller, that's okay. I'm actually looking for clock builders. I'm looking for people that actually want to know more, want to ask why, want to know how A fits in with B and why I'm doing it that way. That's what we're looking for. We love people that ask questions. I said to a group of people this morning, they said, why are the Panthers going so good? And I said, well, you know, there's a whole raft of things I could touch on, but if I had to touch on one, I think we teach better than most clubs. Not coach, teach. I think we teach young men better. Then we go outside and turn it into coaching, and then we go out on the weekend and turn it into performance. But I genuinely think we teach better. Everyone in this room is a teacher, aren't they? Yes, lovely. And then the last one that I just want to talk to you, this is a bit of a, oh, next slide, sorry, Jim. The genius of the and. Does anyone like the Foo Fighters? Yep, beautiful, okay. Foo Fighters did a whole bunch of rock and roll albums, and then they get to a point and Dave Grohl's talking to a record producer and he goes, you know, I'd love to do an acoustic, softer album instead of the doo, doo, doo. He goes, well, you know, the fans and the record producer said, Dave, why don't you do both? So they did Skin and Bones. One of the CDs is just like douche, 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 and the other CD is orchestral, acoustic, very, very nice album, lovely music. I need an office full of people over there that can do two things at the same time. I reckon there's a lot of people in our world, they are brilliant. If I said, I need a person to come to work every day and I need them to screw this onto this brilliantly, like we can find those people. But at the same time as I need you to screw that, I need you to be thinking, what's the next version of this look like? They're the hard ones to find. They're the people I'm looking for. All right? It's very easy to do one thing very well and just the one thing. When you challenge someone to do two things really well simultaneously that sometimes are at opposite ends of the scale, they're the ones I'm looking for in my business. So there's one or two more. Okay, big one. Ties in with being vulnerable and trust. See the plane on the right? That plane crashed. That's the plane on the bottom on the right. 1973, thereabouts. We've all seen Air Crash Investigation, that show on TV. Yep, okay. Plane comes into Seattle Airport, and in those days, the environment of a cockpit was the captain, and the co-pilot would only speak when spoken to. So plane's coming into land, and captain says, landing gear, whatever, and boom, and the light doesn't come on. So the captain goes, Junior, just get the manual, work out what we do. So gets the manual, and as he's flicking through the manual, he looks down and he can see the fuel gauge. And he goes, excuse me, Captain, we're running out of fuel. And the captain says, shh, work the light out, get the book, make that work. Goes on for another 5 minutes, mucking around, Captain can't do it. He feels compelled, excuse me, Captain, we're running out of fuel. And the captain says, when I ask you about the fuel gauge, I'll ask you, flew the plane into the ground. After that, the result of that accident was what you see on TV, where the captain talks and the co-pilot says, very good, Captain, have you thought about this? And the captain goes, that's a great question. That never existed in the 70s. The same thing exists between doctors and nurses. When you go into a hospital, not that I go into hospitals much, but there's a book called Black Box Thinking, and the first 30 pages of it are this horrific story of a woman that goes into a hospital in the UK somewhere, and the nurse can clearly see she needs to be intubated with the tube down the throat. And she's trying to, and the doctors are going, and they're talking about this. No, I think we should cut a leg off. And the nurse is going, you just got to stick the tube down the throat. That'll get you, and she's half brain dead by the time that it finishes. And it was the same relationship. How many times have you been in a meeting and you sit there and we say, we're going to paint the walls yellow, and you sit there, black, yellow, and you sit there and go, that is the dumbest decision I've ever heard. But you don't say anything, do you? Because all the way back at the start, you have a little bit of a fear of the conflict that comes with it. Every day we go home, my wife's going to, I don't know what she's going to cook tonight, I'm not sure. She's going to go, spag bowl, I love spag bowl, whatever. So, but I don't go, can we, because sometimes, it's natural, it's within us. Sometimes we fear the conflict. You've got to get to a point where you avoid the mitigated language. You get to a point where you're in a room and you're in a meeting and here's the suggestion, you go, and you just, and then that over time creates what we call the meeting after the meeting. So you have the meeting and then you go, okay, we're all good. Has anyone got any problems with that? We're all happy. Yeah. Christian, come here. That was horseshit. Who came up with that? So over there, when that happens with us, and we're not perfect, our staff go, oh, hey, you had your chance. Don't drag me in. No, I'm not getting involved in this. You had your chance. Go and see him now. So it's like you've got to put the bumper bars up and force people to talk. I think there's one more. In my business, I'm in a conundrum at the moment. I'm not sure what to do sometimes. We've got a pretty good product over there. Well, not over there anymore because we're going to play at Paris Stadium, but we're a popular footy team. I could add $10 to every person's ticket and make more money, yes? That would be a financial, that would help my P&L, it would help my business, it would make my boat go faster. But if I go to the next one, instead of putting $10 on everyone's ticket, what if I made the game day experience at the Penrith Panthers so good that these 4 people went and told those 7 people, and those 7 people came next week and they went and told those 4 people. And instead of charging everyone $10 extra, my P&L is no different because I'm getting more people come to the football and they're having a great experience. So in my business, there's things I need to pull lever A sometimes around pricing, but sometimes I go, no, I'm going to pull lever B and I'm going to make this the best experience that these people can have. And I'm still going to be financial. I'm going to be in a good position because I'm working on hearts and minds rather than their pockets. And that's the conundrum I'm in at the moment with some of the things that I'm doing in my business. But anyway, I think that's it. That is it. So thanks for the opportunity to come and have a chat. Talking to the boys up the back, understanding that everyone's clearly works in a different business model than I do. The trust and the willingness to share information at times. As I look around the room and I'm sort of thinking if there's 60 people here, there's 50 different businesses, would that be right? And in rugby league, I'm a little bit the same. When I would speak to the people at the Brisbane Broncos and I would give them nothing. And when I was 40, I might tell them this much. And now that I'm 55, I'm speaking weekly with their CFO up there about how we can find efficiencies in both our businesses. Because, you know what, the Broncos, they're not really a threat to me. Parramatta Eels are a threat, but the Broncos, they're not a threat because we're fishing in 2 different ponds at the moment, right? In terms of junior development, where our players come from, all those sorts of things. But as I've gotten older, the amount of times I've gone, I'm not a commercial guy. I'm going to ask a commercial person at another club, how do you do this? And they go, it's easy, you do this and this and this and this. And you go, but then they'll come back to me next week and go, right, you guys are the development experts. How do you do this, 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 this? And as I get older, I realise life is too short. We're missing opportunities, like to be able to share that information. We had a club came in 3 weeks ago, and we swapped org charts. I said, well, why do you have 7 people in digital? Well, if you look at our Instagram numbers, and they were saying, how come you've only got 1 person in recruitment? Well, we're a development club. We don't fly all over the country trying to find kids. They're in the backyard here. We've just got to find them here. It's 20 kilometres in a big circle. So the sharing of the information and the building of trust with one another in your businesses, I reckon you could get some upside and some benefits out of that. Anyway, I think I've spoken a little bit too long, so thanks everyone for having me, and have a safe trip home.